John Flashman on his website, Flash Report, which is flashreport.org, he posted an interview he did with Meg Whitman, I don't know when it was, a couple of weeks ago. And I want to read portions of it to you because I think it's just important for you to know whether you're a fiscal conservative, you're a pro-life Republican, even if you're a social liberal but a fiscal conservative. I just want you to be aware of these things. Now he says in the interview, excuse me, let me preface this particular segment of our interview by saying that because of my strong personal belief in the sanctity of life, of human life, that life begins at conception, and from that very moment that all life deserves the same protection of any other person because of these beliefs, it has been difficult to acknowledge that so many people, including Republican candidate Meg Whitman and Steve Poizner and Tom Campbell for that matter, are not pro-life. In my view, they embrace a tragic and selfish position that places in essence the convenience of an adult over the most basic human right of an unborn child, the right to live. Infinitely unfathomable to me, Meg Whitman takes what I consider to be an even more extreme position, that every expectant mother has the right not only to an abortion, but to have one provided for them at taxpayer expense. Whitman does support some restrictions to an abortion. By way of contrast, I do know from talking extensively on this issue with Steve Poizner that he is very much opposed to the public funding of abortion. I've yet to discuss it with Tom Campbell. All right. So here's a portion of the interview with Meg Whitman, then we'll take a break and I'll share with you the press release I got yesterday out of Tom Campbell's office. Okay, the Flash Report says to Meg Whitman, let's have a thoughtful conversation about the sanctity of life issue because I know it's been talked about. I guess the first thing I'd like to ask you is how you self-characterize your public policy position on the abortion question. Meg Whitman's response. You know that I want to run this campaign on economic issues, on jobs and spending in the economy, but I've been very straight up on where I stand on these issues. I am pro-choice. I am for a woman's right to choose. I am not for late-term abortions or partial birth abortions. I actually voted in favor of the parental notification proposition so that girls under 16 need to have their parents' notification, because as a mother, I would want to know. But I don't want to take that right away from women to make that choice. Flashman says to her, okay, so does that in essence mean that you believe that life doesn't begin at conception, but somewhere at viability? Meg Whitman says, actually, I think every individual needs to make that choice for themselves. That's what Barack Obama said at Saddleback Church. And I think women need to have the ability to make a scientific choice, she's saying. I'm sorry. And I think that women need to have the ability to make the choice of what they think is right for them, for their families, for their personal situation. So again, Fleischman says, when do you believe life begins? And she says, I think every individual needs to make that choice for themselves. Can I tell environmentalists that I don't care about a fish? Can I make that choice? Can I say I don't care about their TV laws? Can I make that choice? Because theirs is based on science, right? But if science is just a choice, I'm sorry, moving on. Fleischman says to her, until we reach one of these accepted points of, and she says, absolutely, like late-term abortion. He says, so what's late-term abortion? Meg Whitman says, well, I think it's defined by statute, right? In the state of California, at least 3 months or the last 4 months of pregnancy. John says, right, and you're comfortable saying it the last trimester. That would not be right. She says, I am comfortable with whatever the exact statute is in California. So let's talk about, John says to Meg Whitman, because I think I read, but I want to make sure that this is accurate, that you support the use of taxpayer funds. Meg Whitman says that's correct. Fleischman says for abortions. So if I go into this idea that the theory is that government money should be paid for things that are for the greater good, how would you justify taking, say, my tax dollars and spending it on something I think we all agree is controversial? Meg Whitman says it is controversial. And by the way, I respect your position on this. I really do respect your position on this, and smart, intelligent, nice people can agree to disagree on abortion because it's a tough issue. My view is that if we are going to be pro-choice, that people do have the ability to have an abortion if they think it is the right thing for them, subject to the rules that we just described, that it needs to be available to all women. And whether you are rich or poor, you need to be able to access abortion. And that's unfair to women. It's unfair to women who cannot afford an abortion. And that's why I support public funding. We'll go to break. I'll just... She goes on. I posted it on my Facebook. You can also read it at FlashReport.org. She goes on to talk about what a weighty issue it is. And yet she believes that taxpayer dollars should be used for this procedure. And that every woman should have the right to access it. They do have the right to access it, by the way, abortion. They don't necessarily have the right to my funds to pay for it.